Alrighty, welcome everyone. My name is Kaylin Banks and I will be your moderator for today. Thank you so much for joining us. I am very excited about today's presentation. So without further ado, let's get going. So I'm going to go through a couple of quick little housekeeping slides just before we get started and everything. So today's session is being recorded. You all will receive an email by the end of next week with today's session recording for your convenience. Throughout today's session, if you have any questions that you'd like us to answer, please feel free to use the Q&A pod there on the right-hand side. And if we're not able to get to any questions during the session, or if maybe you just want to take your question offline, then we will absolutely follow up with an email. For those of you who are brand new to Coso and aren't very familiar with us, just to give you a quick little overview, Coso Cloud is a secure private cloud managed service company. We do provide customer software applications and expert professional services for high consequence virtual training and e-learning. Global companies and government agency customers rely on Coso to complete their solutions when security, compliance, and reliability requirements demand more from virtual meetings and learning management systems. Coso Cloud is an Adobe Connect and Captivate Prime partner based in Oakland, California, with offices in San Diego, California, and DC. Shout out to DC where I am, and all of our East Coasters. A little bit about our speaker. So Yorma Jennings is Coso's Principal Solutions Architect, responsible for being a technical resource for new and existing Coso customer services around Adobe Connect and Captivate Prime. Has 14 years of experience training, deploying, and supporting Adobe Connect and Captivate Prime. He has installed and implemented Adobe Connect for organizations across all verticals, including commercial, healthcare, financial services, state and local government, the federal government, and more. As an Adobe certified trainer for Adobe Connect and a certified online training professional, Yorma has deep knowledge of Adobe's virtual training platform, how it works, and how it can fit into your organization. Yorma is also an Adobe community professional and moderates the user community forums for Adobe Connect, providing help and answers for all users of Adobe Connect. When he is not supporting virtual collaborations platforms, Yorma is teaching people to fly. And without further ado, I'd like to pass the baton off to Yorma so we can get this session started.
Welcome everyone, thanks for joining. Hopefully we can have some fun with this today. As we go through the presentation, I want to cover some best practices, some tips in Connect, as well as talking about concepts around just general virtual trainings and how to make them more effective and sticky for your end users. So let's start by talking about Adobe Connect 11, and as we go through, if you guys have any questions, by all means don't be shy, raise your hand. There are the status icons up top, and we will engage you throughout this, so be ready to respond. But let's talk about some of the new features in Adobe Connect. So one of the kind of new-ish features that comes with Connect 11 is going to be a change in the concept of the host and the presenter area. And so for those of you that have previously run webinars, I'm sure you've used what most people affectionately call the backstage area that used to be called the presenter-only area. It's been renamed as the host and presenter area, and this is because of a slight change in functionality, and it's that we can actually turn it off or hide it from presenters. So not only are we looking at hosts and presenters can see it, but we can make it so that only hosts see it. And this can be a great way to allow other people in the room to have enhanced rights. You can promote people up so they can fully interact with the pods provided in the room as a presenter, but we don't expose that backstage area where maybe it's you or you and some of the other producers in the room are running things, managing, preparing, all the other fun stuff that goes on in the backstage area. So it's a great thing to know that that trick is out there now. And we can find that in that little three-dot menu in the top right-hand corner. The other thing about the host and presenter area that gets overlooked a lot is when you're dealing with that backstage area, there's going to be a divider line between the main stage, where it's going to be the pods that everyone here is seeing. So in this case, our share pod, the picture that you're looking at of me, as well as our Q&A pod. And then to the right, for those of us that have the elevated rights in the room, there's going to be that backstage area. And the other trick that I've seen used over the years, when you have a presenter who maybe gets easily distracted by backstage conversations or things going on behind the scenes when they're trying to present, is to actually inform people that they can grab that little 3 vertical dots there in the middle of the divider line, and they can make that host and presenter area larger or smaller based on the needs. So you as the producer can actually make it larger because you're less focused on what's being delivered, whereas they might make the host and presenter area smaller, or they may even drag it all the way to the right so they don't look at it at all, and they can just focus on the content being delivered. So the divider line is not a new feature by any stretch, but it's one that definitely has been overlooked a lot over the years that I've seen with Adobe Connect. So a great way to customize the look of the room so that way the majority of the space that you're dealing with can be focused on what your role is within the room. So that gets into using the backstage area, and I definitely recommend that you get into a comfort level that you're using it with Adobe Connect. Definitely start with going with what you're comfortable with, what you can manage, but as you get more and more comfortable with Connect, you'll find that your ability to use the tools in the program will grow with your delivery and presentation. Yes, backstage, I do mean presenter and host area. I do see that question come in. And it's, again, just kind of old terminology that runs around in my head, so I apologize for that. But the host and presenter area is an amazing place to have poll questions kind of staged, to have a chat between you and the other individuals who have elevated rights in the room, so that way the participants aren't seeing you have that conversation. And it can be for anything from keeping someone on track, right? If I'm up here speaking and I'm going long, or if I'm talking too fast, I can have the producers backstage kind of giving me cues and hints as far as what's going on and the timing that I'm looking at for my presentation. It can also be a great way for those kind of backstage staff, I guess is the best term for it, to be able to have a conversation, maybe be addressing technical issues, even answering questions behind the scenes. So it's a very powerful tool once you know it's there and figure out how to make it work for you. So definitely take advantage of it if you can. The other big new feature in Adobe Connect, especially this one is fresh with 11.2, which is the latest and greatest version, is that we now have the ability to run native closed captions in the platform. So this differs from the old method of using a custom pod that was used to deliver it for many, many years. It's now a core feature in the product. So you'll find the ability to turn on the closed caption pod in the preferences menu, and there on the bottom left, we're going to see that there's an option for closed captions. We can set up multiple captions that run simultaneously, assuming we have the captioners to deliver that text. But we can choose our caption. You can give it a title. I see a lot of groups that use the language that's specified, so they may have captions that run simultaneously for English and Spanish and French. And so you name it appropriately so people can easily find it. And then there are 2 ways to assign captioners at the moment, and this is expected to grow with Adobe Connect. And so in the drop-down of who do you assign captions to, it's either going to be someone who's in the room, so the captioner is live in the room, and that's why it's listed as an attendee. They're going to sit there and do the work. Or there is a tie-in for stream text, so you can go ahead and have a professional captioning service deliver that information. So those are the 2 options currently. The integrated provider is expected to grow over time. The other thing you'll notice on this screen is over on the right, there's going to be a little plus button to add an additional provider, and this is how we can add additional caption streams. So in this case, I've set up one that was French, and I said I was going to tie it to stream text, and then you can just use an API token that you can find in that pod. So what's it look like in the room now that we've talked about the backstage area? There's actually going to be a new button that appears. It'll be just to the right of the raise hand menu that's going to say CC for closed captions. And that's where you can select the closed caption pod that you want to display. And you can also modify the display options for the text itself, size and color, and there's all kinds of different options, whether it's black text on a white background or white text on a black background. I think there's also blue and yellow. I've heard strong arguments for all of the different color combinations as a result of different ADA researches. So definitely something to keep in mind, that you can modify those as you see fit. And then when we do open the pods and assign an individual, which if you can select, or if you're doing the in-room captioning, you'll see the option to select a captioner. The captions pod will actually have a section that says type here if the individual who's the captioner is looking at it, where everyone else will see a box and the background kind of color disappears. But that's an example of what it looks like to have the caption text in the room. And the closed caption pod can be moved wherever it needs to be displayed in the room for the individual looking at it, which is kind of a nice convenient way to do things, because that means that someone can place the captions where they best find that they don't obscure what's going on in the room. So kind of a cool function there around the captions. And I do see there are a couple of questions here. So any plans for Adobe to incorporate webcam background replacement? Not that I know of off the top of my head. So I've heard it brought up. Adobe may be looking into it, but that's definitely a down the road kind of function. It is not a voice-to-text captioner, correct. This is the traditional sense of closed captioning, that you need a live person there to be doing the captioning. Oh, and were those not showing? I'm sorry if they weren't. So there's all our images there of the closed captioning pod, selecting the captioner, and the text in the room. So the other new feature that I really would like to address with 11.2 is there's now an option, and this is actually available in Connect Central or the back end, where we can turn it on for the room. And it is the new enhanced audio option that uses the Opus codec. So this is the first time Adobe Connect has seen an audio codec update as long as I've been working with the tool, which, as Kaylin mentioned, was a fairly significant amount of time. And it's very exciting to see this progressing and moving forward, but it does come with some limitations. And part of that is this teenage year that kind of Connect is going through. It's not Flash, it's not HTML, it's growing into HTML. So we do have some stumbling points along the way. This should change and the limitations should disappear as the product continues to mature into HTML, but it is worth noting that the mobile application currently does not support the Opus audio codec. So if you turn that on, users will not be able to join from the mobile apps. They will instead have to join through their mobile browsers. So a slight change of workflow there for expected mobile users, and we can expect to see that change. Adobe has talked about a new mobile app coming soon. Currently also the make offline, so if you use that ability to make MP4 recordings, that won't work if the Opus audio codec is used, because that is still part of the classic mode of Connect. So the MP4 conversion has not been built in to the newer HTML-based Connect application. So just know that there may be a period of time where you're not able to make MP4 recordings. People will have to watch them in their native HTML format from Adobe Connect. Any timing for the new mobile apps? I wish that I had something more solid than soon. I know Adobe is working on it. I believe they're trying to get it done in the first half of this year, but the challenge with mobile apps is it's partly on Adobe to get it built, but then of course it has to go through the review process with Apple and Google to get in the stores respectively and address any issues that come back there. So I don't have a solid date that I can put out there for it. What would be the benefit of the enhanced audio? That is a fantastic question. So Adobe Connect's old audio codec was absolutely fantastic 15 years ago. It was an amazing step forward in audio, but it definitely falls behind in the world of modern voice over IP. For those of you that have run with Adobe Connect for a while, you've probably experienced the situation where someone turns on their computer microphone and speakers, and you get an echo, right? They hear all the sound coming out of their computer, and they rebroadcast it back in through Adobe Connect. And so part of the enhanced audio is it does a much better job of doing the audio duplexing to prevent the audio from being rebroadcast. It also has a little bit better performance gains as far as bandwidth and processor requirements, and it's going to be the more modern codec that's used by products like Discord, and I believe even Zoom uses the Opus codec. So it's really just bringing Adobe Connect into the modern era. Does it improve connection issues? No, it's unfortunately just an audio codec to improve audio performance. Can I enable enhanced audio for this session? I don't even know if it is. I'll have to check. But I'm currently on the phone, so I don't know how much it would affect that. But I will go look. So, actually, you know what? I can't. This account is not on 11.2 yet, now that I think about it. So, unfortunately, I can't turn on the enhanced audio here. Sure. This enhanced audio can be optional. It can be optional, all right? You see it's a checkbox, so it's in the settings for the meeting room. So when you're doing things like setting access controls to the room or giving the room a new name, if you're doing that, tying in other audio options, it's a checkbox that's available there. So I guess that leads us to our first poll. And Kaylin, do we have that all queued up? And there it is. Go ahead and open that up. Do you guys currently use the host and presenter areas? I'm curious, because I do run across groups that they see it and they go, oh, you know what, we've never thought to use it. Fantastic. It definitely looks like a strong majority of you guys use it. Excellent. Well, hopefully the new enhancements really do bring in a better use of it, maybe some other alternatives. And for those of you that don't use it, give it a try. It's really something that can be nice to not have to play the game of going in the pods menu and loading pods and navigating through things just to bring in functionality. And it may even save you changing layouts from time to time. All right, I'm going to pull those back. So let's talk about some other tips for just using Adobe Connect as your platform. And really this could apply to anything as far as platforms go. But definitely a big one is to show up prepared. You can show up 15, 30 minutes early, make sure all the content is loaded, that it looks the way that you expect, that your audio sounds good, you have all of your hardware there, you have your cup of water ready to go. Showing up prepared goes a long way, and in my experience of running and delivering webinars, it's the ones that you show up to is going to be, or the one you show up to like 5 minutes early is going to be the one that you're chasing issues constantly, whereas the ones that you show up to 30 minutes early and you have a conversation with the people who are there to help you and you get everything going in the right direction, that when it's time to go, you know what's there and you run forward and everything goes smoothly. And then to add to that, bring a friend, right? Having help goes a long way. So having people like Kaylin here to moderate it and help manage questions. I have a few other people lurking in the background to keep me on task and help answer questions as they come in. That way I'm not necessarily focused on other things happening in the room. I can put my focus completely in delivering my presentation and not worry about if someone's having audio issues or if someone's asking to download something or there are just other questions that come up. I can come to the questions in my own time when I'm prepared. So having help is always a great idea, even if they do try to distract you in the background. So the other thing I would recommend is to use only what is needed. In this webinar here, we're doing a very simple layout, and I have an image of one that's very simple here. Straightforward. We have our presentation being delivered. There's a picture of me, and we have the ability for people in the session here to ask questions and to have that communication. As soon as I start making really complex rooms without a need, it distracts from the content that I'm actually delivering. So be careful about getting fancy in Adobe Connect. It's definitely something that it's very easy to add more and more to the presentation and to your layout, and it can really detract from what you're trying to deliver. So be careful about busy layouts. I know there are situations where it's actually practical and useful, but it's not every day. And interact with your audience, right? Having polls is a great way to do that. We also have the ability to have moderated or unmoderated chat. So in this case, we have moderated chat, which means that you guys can ask questions and I don't have to call out who's asking questions. I can filter out inappropriate questions if they're there. But it's a good way to have that conversation. Unmoderated chat would just be a chat pod where people can have an open conversation. And then another feature that's really overlooked, and it works better in meetings where you're willing to show the attendee list in the main stage area, but we do have the status icon. So there's that icon up top with the hand, which is the raise hand icon, and next to it is a drop-down menu, and we have all these options where you can ask people to agree or disagree. People can give feedback about applause and laughter. If they've stepped away, they can tell you to speak louder or softer. And they can also tell you to speed up or slow down. So knowing those status icons are there really goes a long way. And I have seen a lot of very successful sessions used where people can ask informal polls, essentially using that agree-disagree option in the room itself. And so while it doesn't track the responses, it does keep people engaged. And it keeps people involved in the presentation and your training if you're doing the virtual training. My other tip is to actually use video conservatively, and I know that this is probably going to be a point of contention for people because live video is seen as such a valuable asset in the world of virtual conferencing, but I find in a lot of cases it actually detracts from what it is that you're trying to do. So I've been using an image here of myself to let you see that I am not just a mysterious voice on the other side of the webinar here. I'm a real person, but you don't see me drinking my water while I'm talking or the fact that I kind of pace around as I talk through a lot of these, right? Or that I'm doing something on my monitor that's not the monitor that has my camera, so I appear to look away on the side of things. So using an image does a few things. One is it allows you to provide an image of yourself that you like, so one that you don't have to worry about. And in our world of work from home these days, right, not everyone is camera ready. And the other is it gives a little more focus to what you're doing. And so just to kind of illustrate the difference between me and my corporate photo versus me and my current COVID situation is there's what I would look like on camera, which is very different. So to give everyone a little bit of a chuckle. But right, the image that we portray can vary differently as well, right, if we're look different than our camera image for whatever reason. So I would say use video conservatively. It's not just a bandwidth thing. It really can be a focus thing of what you're delivering. So we'll ask a poll here. I'll let Kayla load that, or Kayla load that. And right, how do you run polls in your meeting? Or how do you run your meetings? I'm sorry, I read that wrong. Run alone? Do you bring a friend? Do you have moderators? And I'll answer some questions while you guys respond here. Too bad, why was I banished to a phone audio connection? It's a more complicated question than you would think. Really, it's that we like to give our attendees the option to voice over IP or telephone. And so to do that, you have to have someone who is a host on the phone line. So I get to play that role as well to ensure that everyone hears the audio. Any plans for integrated audio without third-party payer plans? There is a function called Universal Voice in Adobe Connect that you can tie Adobe Connect into any third-party conference line. It doesn't have the full integration, which may be what you're asking about, but that really has to do with Adobe Connect's ability to communicate with that phone bridge to do things like mute audio and set up like sub-conferences for breakout rooms. So it would really take the ability to have that kind of interactivity with other plans. But as far as without third-party payer plans, is Adobe going to get into the audio conferencing game? I wouldn't hold my breath for that one. How many cameras at once are recommended in the video pod? So hopefully I kind of answered what my personal preference is, which would be 0 to 1. Turning on your camera for opening sessions versus or in closing sessions, right, where I'm maybe answering questions specifically, I want to look my audience in the eye, I would do that. But I have a hard time conveying Adobe Connect as a video conferencing platform. 10 to 15 cameras at a time sounds about right for the performance of Adobe Connect. That may change here later in the year when Adobe updates the video codec to go with Connect. So the audio codec was first, but it's definitely something that Connect wasn't built to be a video conferencing platform. It's a virtual training and web conferencing platform that happens to do live video. That's kind of how I describe it. Best way to connect your mic and speakers, I would say the best way to do it is to have dedicated mic and speakers. I prefer headsets. I don't get any echoes at that point. USB is a great way to do it. I've seen issues with the line-in stuff. I've seen issues with Bluetooth. USB just seems to be rock solid. So generally speaking, I would say a USB headset's the way to go. Something in the $40 to $100 range would be my preferred kind of sweet spot. You can usually do a little less expensive, but you get into the real cheap stuff and your audio just sounds terrible because the hardware's cheap, and you pay more than $100 and you're paying for functionality that maybe isn't useful to you, like LED lights that turn on that nobody's going to see anyway. Use two hosts for some of your classes. Excellent. That does help. It really does. Having that producer behind the scenes goes a long, long way. I already have some of those replied to. Fair enough. Definitely. Well, glad my perspective on video could help. I try to be honest about it. Participants on the webcam help you monitor if they are paying attention. Any tips? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the engagement monitor can help, but it comes with its drawbacks. But that's really where having these engagement tools in Connect come into play. And it's not just the ones built into Connect, and we'll talk about a couple more here in a little bit. But the custom pod concept goes a really long way for keeping that engagement with Adobe Connect, that we're able to dream up additional functionality and bring it into the room. But asking questions, asking people to give those status icon feedbacks, including people in the conversation. You're not just lecturing at them the whole time. That goes a long way for keeping people engaged. And one of the great parts about asking polls is that all of that information is tracked on the back end of Connect. So you can always go back later and say, hey, who wasn't answering my polls? And then if they weren't engaged in part of the presentation, that may have an impact on their grade or the credit they receive for attending. Are there third-party audio providers that provide support for breakout rooms? Yes. All of the integrated audio providers provide support for breakout rooms at some level. So whether it's Meeting One, PGI, and then Intrado or Archidin. I think those are the three by name now. Intrado keeps changing their name, so I have to think about it. But they all support breakout room functionality. All right. So let's talk about attendee focus, right? And there's been questions that have been asked about it. And it's always a key point, is how do we keep our audience engaged with what we're doing? Because it's very easy to have a group of people who are sitting in front of their computer getting distracted by instant messenger, by emails, by all these other things going on. And we want to know, how are they staying with us? So custom pods is going to be one of those great functions that we can use to drive more engagement. So Coso does have our own custom pods. We have things like the Game Cloud, which I know it's not the most interesting screen grab, but it's the ones I could get for this, where you can do quizzes, testing, surveys, crosswords, all kinds of things in the room that track user engagement, provide people the ability to do something other than just show up and stare at their screen, and have a little bit of gamification, right? Being able to do crosswords is really cool that they can do it collaboratively, or you can have it so that they're competing against each other to do the crosswords. There's also things like our YouTube pod that allows you to bring videos into Adobe Connect through a platform that is built for video delivery. MP4s work pretty well in Connect. There are some limitations and some considerations you have to put in before really effectively playing MP4s in the room, but using something like the YouTube pod allows you to leverage the back-end delivery mechanism of YouTube and to pull videos in. I know not everyone can use YouTube, but it's just one of those kind of neat things about custom pods that we can address. And then there's other custom pods that are out there. So if you go to apps.adobeconnect.com, you'll end up at the app page where there's going to be things like our YouTube pod there, but there's other ones that allow you to have additional functionality in the room, which can be everything from the simple rock, paper, scissors there in the bottom right that allows people to play a game. It's fantastic for lobbies or breaks or post-session kind of layouts to give people something to do. You want to keep their attention? Give them something to click on and to play with. We have the timer pod, which we used at the beginning of our session, so that way you knew kind of when we were going to get started. It's a way for me to communicate some kind of interesting, well, maybe it's not terribly interesting, but a good visual indication of when we're going to get started. That way you're not sitting around going, well, do I have time to go get a refill on my coffee? And if you have that up and you see, oh, look, we're going to start in 7 minutes, yes, I can get a new cup of coffee in that time and be back and ready to go when we're starting. So the meeting timer pod, I use it a lot for different scenarios, whether it's breaks or session starts, that way people know exactly when we're going to get started. And then the randomizer has been a long-time favorite of mine, even though sometimes it feels like it's not random because it calls on the same person. I'm not sure what the logic behind it is. It's an Adobe-built pod, but it does look to the participant list in the room, and it picks someone at random. So if you're worried about user engagement, you have questions that you want to ask people, you can use the randomizer to put it on the screen, hit the button, whatever name comes up, that's the person that gets the pleasure of answering your question. Excuse me, your question. So you can engage people that way because now they know that someone's going to get called on and it might be them. So if they're off not paying attention, right, there's a chance that you're going to catch them in that. So I believe we have a poll about who uses custom pods or what pods you use. So I'm curious if there are pods that are used out there. Looks like it's a heavy race, or it was, between closed captioning and YouTube. I suppose we probably should have made this a checkbox so you can select more than one. So maybe we make this, what is your favorite custom pod? So closed captioning is a lot, which is fantastic to see because that means that the native closed captioning in Adobe Connect hopefully makes that a little bit easier for you guys moving forward. Fantastic. All right, let me grab some other questions while we're here at our poll break. Some people use integrated audio providers. Excellent. That one's answered. So we got replies. See, my back-end people, they're helping behind the scenes. Fair enough. They all got answered. Then I will move on. They're letting me do my work. Other things about keeping the focus is going to be engaging people, right? Asking for feedback, having visuals. You'll notice that my presentation was predominantly all visual information. If you show up and you have a presentation that you sit there and read the slides to individuals, you're going to lose their focus. Because let's be honest, your audience showing up, except for maybe rare cases, are all people who can read the slides. So if all you do is regurgitate that information to people, they're not going to be there mentally with you. They're going to check out. So do what you can. Ask polls, engage people. If they're asking questions, respond to them. Make sure that people feel like they're an integral part of your presentation. You know, there's nothing to say I couldn't have shown up in a room by myself and recorded the delivery of this presentation and just shared a recording. And if all I was going to do was read things to you, then that may be the way to go. But I love the feedback. I love the interaction with people. I love hearing people's responses. I enjoy hearing the challenges that are faced within a platform and finding solutions or ways to get around those challenges. So engage your audience and make sure that they really are a part of your presentation. So leaving takeaways is important just because it's something that people can have and easily reference down the road. Whether it's even, like I said, some kind of call to action to come back to you if there's questions, or just your highlights of what was discussed, or the PowerPoint slide deck or presentation that was delivered. And then the last one, which is probably one of my favorite guys here, is to follow up. It's something that can be done very simply and easily. When we follow up with our audience, it can be a thanks for coming, thanks for attending, for being an active participant. I wanted to provide you the recording for the presentation. And it's a completely justifiable reason to reach out to someone. Whereas if you start to overcomplicate it, say we have a session with 15, 25, 87 people, me having a one-on-one conversation with everyone who attended is likely going to be very, very time-consuming for me, but also probably not what everyone wants. So being able to reach out through email or some other form of communication to let people know that we really do appreciate you guys showing up and being an active part of this. This is what makes it fun and interesting to even do these webinars, is to see what the community is doing, so we're not just working in a vacuum of what we think is the best way to do things. So being able to talk with everyone and have that open door afterward is a great way to, again, keep that engagement, as I know that I can see you guys again if I haven't bored you to death, if I haven't turned you off by delivering information and then walking away and never reaching out again. So follow up. It's a great way to kind of keep that retention and keep that audience coming back. That is going to be the primary list of what I have here. So I know there's been some questions that came in, so sorry about the audio loss. That one is completely my fault. For some reason, my phone disconnected. So what other questions do we have? I see that our team has been furiously answering questions in the background. And if nothing else, I really appreciate you guys showing up. Thanks for being a part of this. And I will give you a little bit of time back. Kaylin, did you have any final thoughts here as we wrap up and answer questions?
Yes, I just wanted to thank everyone as well for attending. It was such a pleasure seeing you all. I've got a couple of brought back the downloadable resources and the websites for you all to check out. And if you've got a quick second to answer our question, what would you like to see from a future Coso webinar? We would love to know what content you guys would like to see from us moving forward, if it's more from Yorma or just anything in particular that you guys really need from Connect 11, please let us know and we will do our best to make it happen. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for attending. This session was recorded and will be placed online and emailed directly to everyone that attended. So thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.
Definitely. Thank you for joining, and we may do some of those, but I definitely see some on the list of responses that I might have to eliminate. Though me dancing in a tutu would be funny. My daughters have them around, so I'm not saying it's out of the realm.
I think we should definitely get that in there.
How to use the YouTube player from A to Z. We may actually have a video up on that on our YouTube channel, but you know, it's definitely something we could put together on using the custom pods. I see roadmap there. I know if you change your answer, it'll change it from roadmap, but I'm curious, a roadmap of what specifically? Because some of it is stuff that we could do, and some of it is stuff that we could coordinate with Adobe to work on if it's about the product, the Connect product itself. Practices for advanced presenters. I like that one. Adobe Connect. Adobe has some great stuff there, but yeah, we can definitely work on coordinating that one. That one probably wouldn't be as public. Adobe likes to not put that out there unless they're in control of that information, but we can definitely work that out. Where do you access are you talking about the YouTube pod? We have the link above that says Coso Cloud Apps and Extensions. If you click on that, you can find it there, as well as if you go to apps.adobeconnect.com. The YouTube pod is listed there, and it gets you a link to being able to, I think, set up a trial, or we have staff here who's actually in the webinar, I think. Let me look. Yeah, Nancy's here. She can, oh, and there we go. Someone with elevated rights clicked on it, so it opened for everyone. But, you know, reach out to us if you want a trial of it as well. We're more than happy to help get you started with that. Connection issues. That'd be a good one. You know, the hard part about connection issues is there's a lot of variables. So that may be better of a one-on-one conversation than it is with a webinar, but, you know, we're more than happy to have those conversations as well. Ooh, creating a custom pod. That's one that's been out there for a while. I'd have to think about how to do that in a way that wasn't an 8-hour-long conversation. I'm sure we can come up with something fun and simple to do initially. Thank you. Issues with people joining from China. Is it a known issue? It is, absolutely. Chinese internet connectivity outside of China is always a challenge. Unfortunately, I feel like the best solution there is to have a server in or very close to China. Coso, we do have a server cluster that's available in Hong Kong for our customers. I believe Adobe also has an APAC server, and I'm trying to remember where it is. But getting something kind of more in China's firewall definitely helps a lot. Definitely. Thank you for joining from London. You guys have a good night. Appreciate it. Well, if you have any other questions, by all means, chime in. I suppose we could bring back a chat pod for you guys if you wanted. But otherwise, we will be sharing the recording. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time. And reach out to us at any point.